What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So the PS5 Pro specs have been leaked, and one of my audience members, Amari, shout out to you, asked me what I thought about it. They just want to hear my perspective. For those of you who may or may not know, this is a long-time OG of the Video Game Fight School channel. I mean, Amari was here when I think I had like 200 subs or less. That's how long he's been here. So if he has a request, it's done. I replied and said I saw it. Honestly, when games land on it, that's the only metric we can trust. The challenge is usually the CPU. Open world games are heavily dependent on that. So when all is said and done, we have to throw these games on there to see how it performs. If you look at Insider Gaming's specs, I don't see any specs per se when I look at this anyways. All I see is feature possibilities with the caveat like we got with the PlayStation 5 and Series X. Remember, those two consoles, they can do 60 FPS. They can do 4K. The caveat is only in software that supports it. So that caveat on the box of your Xbox, right? That little caveat that says, 4K 120 FPS. And then if you look on the bottom on software that supports it, that is where you have to basically pay attention. So you really have to do a rubber meets the road test. That's how we usually do it, on the PC side. Now you may be wondering, why does the PC side even have to come into the conversation? Well, now we're in a place where the consoles seem to want to provide a value that can match PC. Many of you remember, if you've watched it, I just made a video where I pointed out like $650 worth of parts that can basically decimate the current PS5 and the current, Xbox Series X in terms of performance and even functionality down the road, because you can build a game with a PC like that. But on the side of the PlayStation, you can't, because it's locked into a specific operating system that won't let you do it. And even on the Xbox, the Windows version there is different from the full-scale Windows version you get on a desktop. So again, they want to basically present a solution that will give you something that you can game with. So saying rendering 45% faster than a PS5, how? In what metric? For what game? Those are questions that you'd have to ask, and it's like, we don't know. So we'd have to throw the games on there, right? 2 to 3 times ray tracing, 4 times in some cases. Do you mean Sackboy? Do you mean The Last of Us Part 2? Do you mean Ghost of Tsushima? What game? Because all these games are going to run differently. Do you mean Elden Ring? Do you mean Gotham Knights? Do you mean Dragon's Dogma 2? Do you mean GTA 5? When all these games finally sit on the console, that's when we're going to be seeing these things. PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution Upscaling, an anti-aliasing solution. This is an upscaling solution, okay? So already we know that there's going to be those tricks to basically give you better performance at higher resolutions, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with upscaling. I see a lot of PC gamers, get upset with upscaling, but in console world, they love it. So I guess that's very interesting to see. Support for resolutions up to 8K is planned for future SDK version. Again, this 8K support, I don't really understand, nor do I know why it's a necessity to basically market 8K. If you want 8K, go get a 4090. I know for certain that the 4090 is capable of 8K. If you want to even test it out, you can basically see 4090 on Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. It lets you scale that game all the way to 8K. It's insane how good, that GPU can actually run things. It's a wild machine. AMD doesn't need to make anything. I say AMD. What's their name? NVIDIA doesn't need to make anything anymore in a high, scale, except they want to just bankrupt enthusiasts, because that GPU is freaking amazing. AI accelerator supporting 300 tops of 8-bit computation, 67. Again, what does this even mean? At the end of the day, put it on the games so that we can see how it's going to perform, because performance is basically what they're vying for now. Because if you look at, say, the parts for PC components, a few years ago, these parts were out of reach for a lot of people. But now the, GPUs like the 3060, 16 gigs, the 3070 refurbished. If you look on somewhere like Newegg, the 3070 refurbished is a heavily discounted device. So as many people may say, well, we don't want to buy a refurbished, 3070 for, $399. Actually, on Amazon, you'll get one. Oh, yeah, we go $309 refurbished, being sold by Newegg themselves. So it's going to have their Newegg guarantee. Again, you can see why PlayStation and Xbox might be in the position to say we're coming in with more performance, but you really have to wait and see. And the reason I say wait and see is because the machine builds themselves. really require what I think is a lot of tact to be able to kind of like sit down and like dissect what's going on. What I mean by that is you have to do heat management and temperature management on, hardware devices that play video games or whatever, kind of computing hardware device you want to use affects performance. A lot of these things are going to throttle whenever they get too hot. And what is the cooling solution that's going to be available on a PS5, especially based on its design? One reason the Xbox, I think, usually outclasses the Series X anyways, outclasses the PS5 is because it has a very good cooling solution. That vent at the back and the way that it just basically lets the hot air rise is engineering. It's basic science, but the engineering to actually pull it off that way, in my opinion, on a console is actually pretty cool. So I think that usually gives the PlayStation 5 a little bit of a disadvantage because, again, you have that device sitting and facing a wall, and the dissipation of air hot airflow is not necessarily as good than when you just let the air naturally rise, which hot air would basically do based on it's going to be nerdy, all the particles and the molecules inside of air, blah, 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 blah. So again, the design is also going to affect it depending on the game. This is why your PS5s on Final Fantasy 16 were heating up and in some cases going off. Anybody would say, "Oh, clean your PS5," and some people were like, "I cleaned it, but it's still, going off." It could be the way it's positioned in your house. You might need to give it some breathing room to get good airflow. So that's something that y'all are gonna have to learn. If you're on PC gaming, that's why many people use water cooling solutions, so you don't have to necessarily worry too much about that. Because at the end of the day, you still got to cram your hardware device in a corner to keep it out of like reach or keep it out of being able to have accidents. So far, these are my thoughts on the issue. It might be a good buy for some of you, but like I usually say, it might be the time for you to consider getting a PC because you can pawn off your PlayStation 5 for $300, and you can go basically take that extra money you were going to use and build yourself a PC that might just be better. So if I were you, I'd probably just wait, see how it performs in games, and see what PC hardware is doing in terms of pricing when it eventually comes out. It's going to be really, really fun and nasty. And many of you don't know, AMD knows how to basically structure their market in a strange way. Right now, they're selling $90 CPUs that you can use for basically all kinds of fun stuff. And so I love it. I love the fact that now we're at this point where console wants to basically match up with PC, and we're really, really going to see who's boss. But at the end of the day, PC is boss because I don't have to go buy a brand new device that is going to be also locked away. I can easily tweak one or two components and I'm set to go without any problems with very little money as well too. I mean, like the PC that I'm using right now, if I really wanted more performance, which I don't need, I just change my CPU. It uses, I already know what I'm looking for. I already know what I have. I already built with that in mind based on what I wanted to spend, based on my budget, based on all kinds of different things. So that's pretty much my thought process, Amari. I really appreciate you actually, pointing this out to me. I didn't want to talk about it at this moment because I'm a wait and see person. I want to know what we're getting into because having jumped on, having had a lot of people jump on the PlayStation and the Series X for the performance that they feel they should get, and finding out that not every game is going to be giving them that performance, even though it was written on the box, was disappointing. So we want to see what's written on the box. We want to see what the video game developers are doing with it, if they're bothering, and it's going to be interesting overall. So thanks so much for watching. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.